Hey there, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about Cleopatra. So don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos about the most famous people in history. So let's get this straight. While most people in ancient times were busy fighting plagues, building pyramids, or just trying not to die at 31, Queen had other priorities. Meet Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt and possibly the first influencer of weird skincare hacks. Forget your charcoal masks and 12-step Korean routines. This woman allegedly bathed in donkey milk. Yep, she made an entire dairy farm cry just so she could soak in it. Why? Because she believed it would keep her skin young and radiant? And honestly, she was onto something. Donkey milk is rich in alpha-hydroxy acids which help exfoliate skin. It also has vitamins A, B, D, and E. Science actually backs this up, which is both amazing and disturbing because somewhere a 2,000-year-old queen just got a skincare W over all of us. But wait, there's more. Cleopatra wasn't just a donkey milk enthusiast. She was also a fan of something called a facial peel, which involved coating her face with a mixture of sour milk and flour, and then letting it sit for hours before scrubbing it off. Talk about a long and milky beauty routine. But why would someone who had access to all the fancy lotions and potions the ancient world had to offer turn to such bizarre methods? Well, it might have been because she knew that these simple ingredients had some pretty powerful effects. For starters, donkey milk is a natural exfoliant. The lactic acid in the milk breaks down dead skin cells and reveals brighter, smoother skin underneath. Plus, it's packed with vitamins and minerals that nourish and hydrate the skin. Then there's the facial peel. Sour milk contains enzymes that, when applied to the face, can brighten and even out skin tone. When mixed with flour, it forms a paste that tightens as it dries, which can help with product application and minimize the appearance of pores. These DIY beauty treatments may seem strange to us today, but they were part of a long tradition of using natural ingredients for skincare. In ancient Egypt, Cleopatra wasn't the only one bathing in donkey milk. The practice was common among the elite who believed it could improve their skin and overall health. And while we may cringe at the thought of covering our faces with sour milk and flour, it's important to remember that these ingredients were just as popular in the ancient world as they were in the modern era. For example, Cleopatra's facial peel is a precursor to the yogurt mask, which is still popular in India and other parts of Asia today. And donkey milk, well, it may not be as common, but it's certainly not unheard of. Of course, we shouldn't ignore the fact that Cleopatra likely had access to ingredients that most people in ancient times did not. As the last pharaoh of Egypt, she ruled over a vast empire that spanned from the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea. Her wealth and power meant that she could afford exotic ingredients like donkey milk, which was imported from other regions. In addition, she had access to the best doctors and healers that Egypt had to offer, who likely recommended these natural remedies for her skincare routine. But what makes Cleopatra's story so fascinating is that she didn't just rely on traditional treatments. She was also known for experimenting with new and innovative ways to improve her beauty. One of the most famous examples of this is the legend that she tested new perfumes by having them sprayed on condemned prisoners before they were executed. While there's no historical evidence to support this story, it does paint a picture of a pharaoh who was willing to go to great lengths to perfect her scent. Cleopatra's obsession with beauty wasn't just about vanity. It was also a way of maintaining her power and influence. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was seen as a god on earth, and it was important for them to maintain a flawless appearance to uphold their divine image. Additionally, Cleopatra lived in a time when women were often judged for their looks, and she used her beauty to her advantage. She was known for being flirtatious and using her charm to manipulate those around her. But despite her many beauty secrets, Cleopatra's story had a tragic ending. At the age of 39, she died under mysterious circumstances after being bitten by an asp, a type of venomous snake. Her death marked the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty and the beginning of Roman rule in Egypt, but her legacy lived on through the centuries, becoming the subject of countless books, films, and works of art. One of the most famous portrayals of Cleopatra came in 1963 when Elizabeth Taylor starred as the Egyptian queen in the film Cleopatra. Taylor's portrayal of Cleopatra helped to cement the pharaoh's reputation as a legendary beauty. And while the film was a critical and commercial success, it also contributed to the myth-making surrounding Cleopatra's life. In recent years, however, there has been a movement to reclaim Cleopatra's story and present a more accurate and inclusive portrayal of the Egyptian queen. Many scholars and historians have argued that Cleopatra was not actually Egyptian, but Greek, and that her accent was Greek, not Egyptian. They've also noted that much of what we know about Cleopatra in Roman sources who often portrayed her in a negative light. Despite these efforts, Cleopatra's image as a timeless beauty remains. And it's easy to see why. When you think of Cleopatra, you probably imagine a stunning woman with flowing black hair and captivating eyes. But what if I told you that Cleopatra did actually look like the way she is often depicted? In fact, we have very little idea what she looked like at all. Most of our ideas about Cleopatra's appearance are based on a single coin minted during her reign. The coin shows a woman with a distinctive nose, almond-shaped eyes, and a regal bearing. But it's just one tiny glimpse into what Cleopatra may have looked like. We don't know if she wore makeup or jewelry, and we can only guess at her skin tone and hair color. Some historians believe that Cleopatra was actually darker-skinned than most of the Egyptians, since she was descended from a long line of African rulers. Others argue that she was more like the Greeks who ruled in Alexandria and had lighter skin and hair. Ultimately, we don't know what Cleopatra looked like, which means that the image we have of her is largely a product of our own imagination. One of the most enduring images of Cleopatra comes from a famous painting by the Italian Renaissance artist Raphael. In the painting, Cleopatra is shown reclining on a couch while an attendant fans her. She is wearing a sheer white dress that leaves little to the imagination, and her dark hair cascades down her shoulders. But this image is far from what Cleopatra actually looked like. Not only does it sexualize the Egyptian queen, but it also relies on harmful stereotypes about people of color. The painting was completed in 1520, more than 1,000 years after Cleopatra's death, and it reflects the racist and sexist attitudes of the time period. Another popular image of Cleopatra comes from the 1888 painting by John William Godoy. In the painting, Cleopatra is shown as a tragic figure lying on the ground with a snake coiled around her arm. The painting captures the dramatic moment when Cleopatra took her own life rather than be captured by the Romans. But once again, this image is not based on any historical evidence. In fact, we don't know how Cleopatra died or what she looked like when she died. The story of Cleopatra and the snake is a myth that has been perpetuated over the centuries, even though there's no proof that it's true. While we may never know what Cleopatra really looked like, we can appreciate the beauty and mystery of the myths and legends that surround her. From the coins minted during her reign to the paintings created centuries later, each piece of art adds another layer to the story of one of history's most enigmatic queens. Even though Cleopatra's beauty secrets may seem strange to us now, they were part of a rich tradition of natural skincare. And even though we may never know exactly what she looked like, her story continues to inspire artists and historians alike. And that's all for our video about Cleopatra's beauty secrets. Let us know in the comments below what you found the most interesting, and do not forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of our future videos. Today we're answering the question, how many donkeys does it take to fill a bathtub with milk? We'll assume the bathtub is full to the brim, and we'll also assume that all the donkeys are female. Since male donkeys do produce milk, let's get into it. Donkey milk isn't like cow milk. So how much milk can a donkey give us? According to studies, a donkey gives between 20 and 30 pounds or 9 to 14 kilograms of milk per day. Now, how big is that exactly? Well, an average cow produces about 80 pounds or 36 kilograms of milk per day. So donkeys produce about 1/8 the amount of milk per day. This means if we want to get close to filling our bathtub with donkey milk, we'll need quite a few donkeys. But wait, we have to consider another factor. When it comes to milk production, donkeys are drama queens. They only produce milk after giving birth to a baby donkey, also known as a donkey. And they won't produce milk unless they're pregnant or recently gave birth. To put it simply, you can't just walk up to a healthy donkey and start milking it. It's not going to happen. So if you want to fill your bathtub with donkey milk, you'll have to have a lot of donkeys that are either pregnant or nursing. So how long do donkeys nurse their young? Generally speaking, donkeys nurse their young for around 8 months. Although some farmers have reported their animals nursing for up to 2 years, but let's go with 8 months. After 8 months, the donkey will stop producing milk. It's important to note that a donkey's first lactation period may produce less milk than subsequent lactations. But for simplicity's sake, we'll assume all the donkeys in this scenario are in their second lactation or beyond. Donkey milk production also depends on things like diet and overall health. If the donkey is well fed and cared for, it will likely produce more milk. However, it's difficult to control these variables, and we want to keep our hypothetical situation as simple as possible. And finally, milk production declines towards the end of the year and picks up again in the spring. So we'll assume we're milking our donkeys during peak milk production season. Historical sources tell us Cleopatra kept 700 donkeys on standby for her beauty routine. So let's see how many donkeys it would take to fill a bathtub with milk. Assuming each donkey gives between 20 and 30 pounds or 9 and 14 kilograms of milk per day, and we want to fill a bathtub with milk. On the low end, we'd need about 570 donkeys. On the high end, we'd need about 380 donkeys. The number of donkeys needed to fill a bathtub with milk depends on how much milk each donkey can produce per day. Since we assume the milk had to be fresh and unfrozen, there's a good chance that most of the milk produced by those donkeys would spoil before Cleopatra took her bath. So it makes sense that she kept 700 donkeys on standby. With that said, Cleopatra likely didn't bathe in donkey milk. The story is a myth spread by her enemies who wanted to make her look foolish. As you might have heard, Cleopatra was the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt. She took the throne in 51 BC at the age of 14. Either alone or jointly with her father, Ptolemy XII. By the time she turned 21, she ruled Egypt alongside her sister and lover, Mark Antony. Their relationship made Rome and Egypt uneasy. In fact, Octavian, who would later become the Emperor Augustus, declared war on Egypt in 32 BC. Cleopatra refused to surrender without a fight. She famously sank her fleet of 200 warships in the Battle of Actium. The result, Rome seized Alexandria, and Cleopatra took her own life by allowing an asp to bite her. Cleopatra is often portrayed as having bathed in donkey milk, but the story seems to originate from a single letter written by the Roman philosopher Pliny the Younger. The letter was addressed to the historian Tacitus, and Pliny asked Tacitus to find out why Cleopatra bathed in donkey milk. Pliny was genuinely curious because he believed donkey milk was foul-smelling and tasted like dirty socks. He also thought Cleopatra was insane. So why did she do it? One theory suggests Cleopatra used donkey milk to treat acne. Another theory suggests it helped soothe her sunburnt skin. And yet another theory says she used it as a form of contraception. Whether or not Cleopatra bathed in donkey milk, it's clear that the story has endured throughout history. You might be surprised to learn that people still use donkey milk today. Donkey milk is sometimes used to treat eczema and other skin disorders because it contains high levels of fat and protein. It's also hypoallergenic, making it ideal for sensitive skin. Additionally, donkey milk is rich in vitamins and minerals like vitamin A, which promotes healthy skin, vitamin C, which brightens skin tone, calcium, which improves skin elasticity, and iron, which protects against sun damage. Now that we know how much milk a donkey can produce, how many donkeys it takes to fill a bathtub with milk, and why Cleopatra may have bathed in donkey milk, let's answer some additional questions. How much does a donkey cost? Donkeys can cost anywhere from $500 to $2,500 depending on factors such as breed, age, and whether it's a pet or a working animal. How much should I feed a donkey? Donkeys are not large animals and do not require a large amount of food. Adult donkeys typically consume between 12 and 15 pounds of hay or pasture per day. Additionally, they may receive a small amount of grain or other supplements. What's the difference between a donkey and a mule? Donkeys are the smaller, long-eared mammals that have been domesticated for thousands of years and are often kept as pets or working animals. Mules, on the other hand, are a hybrid animal that results from the breeding of a male donkey and a female horse. What's the difference between a donkey and a burro? Burros are simply a type of donkey that is smaller in size and has distinctive characteristics such as larger ears and a thicker coat of hair. Do donkeys eat meat? Donkeys are herbivores and do not eat meat. How long do donkeys live? Donkeys typically live between 25 and 30 years, although some may live longer. What color can a donkey be? Donkeys come in a variety of colors including gray, brown, black, and white. Some donkeys may also have spots or other markings. How do I groom a donkey? Donkeys need regular grooming to keep their coat clean and free of dirt and debris. Brushing, combing, and scraping are all effective ways to groom a donkey. Additionally, donkeys may benefit from occasional baths. Can I ride a donkey? Yes, donkeys can be ridden, but it's important to start slow and build up to longer rides over time. Be sure to use a properly fitted saddle and bridle and always ride safely. You know those viral videos where people are like, "Get ready for bed. Wash your face and then put a thin layer of Vaseline on your cheeks, forehead, anywhere that has open pores." And then they follow it up with a cautionary tale about how their cousin's uncle's former roommate tried it once and woke up with a face full of bees. Yeah, we did a double take too. But this ancient queen took skincare to another level with her go-to beauty hack, bathing in donkey milk. Welcome to my channel. Today we're answering the extraordinary question, why did Cleopatra bathe in donkey milk? Now, before you think she was just some spoiled royal doing the ancient version of a TikTok skincare trend, let's add some context. Cleopatra wasn't just bathing for beauty, she was playing 4D political chess. She ruled a crumbling empire, surrounded by Romans with egos the size of pyramids. So she used everything at her disposal: charm, diplomacy, intelligence, and yes, donkey milk baths. Looking young and radiant helped maintain her image of power. When she met Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony, she showed up like a goddess, radiant skin glowing under gold silk robes. First impressions matter, especially when you're trying to seduce a Roman general into helping you save your kingdom. The donkey milk? It was just part of the brand. Cleopatra's story is one of ambition, intelligence, and unique beauty secrets. She was the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt. A descendant of Alexander the Great. Born in 69 BC, Cleopatra inherited the throne at 14 after her father, King Ptolemy XII, died. Although ancient Egypt had descended from its former glory and was essentially a province of Rome, Cleopatra wanted to reclaim its past grandeur. Despite the odds stacked against her, she proved to be a capable ruler, balancing the books, reforming the currency and building monuments that proclaimed her divinity. But her greatest challenge was staying alive. Her brother and husband, Ptolemy XIII, had taken the throne with her, and despite being betrothed to him since childhood, Cleopatra quickly grew to dislike her spouse. At 18, she married her younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, but had him murdered 8 years later, cementing her position as the sole ruler of Egypt. However, her thirst for power came at a cost. Her reputation in Rome took a hit, being branded a manipulative murderess who had eliminated 2 brothers to secure the throne. Undeterred, Cleopatra set her sights on a new suitor, Julius Caesar. In 48 BC, Cleopatra charmed the Roman dictator, giving birth to his son Caesarion 2 years later. This alliance brought stability to Egypt for a time, but it was short-lived. Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC and Cleopatra found herself targeted by his assassins. Managing to escape to her palace, she survived an attempt on her life orchestrated by Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, now known as Augustus. Cleopatra thwarted Octavian's efforts to seize control of Egypt, and she secured her position as a powerful independent ruler. But her next romantic conquest would lead to her downfall. In 41 BC, she caught the eye of Roman general Mark Antony, forming both a passionate relationship and a powerful political alliance. Together, they reorganized the eastern Mediterranean, granting Cleopatra territories in Syria, Cyprus, and Palestine. Their union, however, was viewed with suspicion by Octavian, who saw Cleopatra's growing influence as a threat to his power. Fearing her ambitions, Octavian launched a campaign against her, crushing her forces and seizing her domains. With her kingdom in peril, Cleopatra made a desperate move, seeking refuge in India. There she found an unexpected ally in King Patiaz, who welcomed her and her sister and provided her with an army to reclaim her lost territories. Unfortunately, Cleopatra's appeal to the Indian king fell on deaf ears, and he refused to assist her in regaining her lost territories. Faced with betrayal, Cleopatra returned to Alexandria, leaving her lover behind. Upon her return to Alexandria, Cleopatra found her situation dire. Octavian had blockaded the city and her forces were depleted. With her options dwindling, she turned to her last resort, summoning the famed asp, a venomous snake, to end her own life rather than submit to Octavian's rule. Thus ended the reign of Cleopatra, one of history's most enigmatic rulers. Yet amidst the tales of her ambition and intrigue, there persists a peculiar footnote, her fondness for donkey milk baths. You might be wondering why a queen with access to the riches of the ancient world would choose such an unusual bathing ritual. The answer lies not only in the perceived benefits of donkey milk, but also in Cleopatra's strategic use of unique practices to enhance her allure. Donkey milk was prized for its soothing properties, believed to alleviate skin irritations and nourish the complexion. In ancient Egypt, donkeys were considered sacred animals, symbolizing endurance and strength. Cleopatra, by incorporating donkey milk into her beauty regimen, was aligning herself with these revered creatures, adding a layer of sanctity to her personal care routine. Additionally, the scarcity and exotic nature of donkey milk made it a luxurious item, elevating Cleopatra's bathing rituals to an exclusive, almost mystical experience. However, the true genius of Cleopatra's beauty secret lay in its paradoxical nature. While Cleopatra enjoyed the potential benefits of donkey milk, she also understood that her unusual bathing habits would become legendary, further enhancing her mystique. By embracing the unconventional, she set herself apart, ensuring that her presence would be remembered long after her bathwater had dried. As Cleopatra ascended the throne, she faced not only political turmoil but also social conventions. Ancient Egyptian women typically wore heavy makeup, which often included toxic ingredients. However, Cleopatra challenged this norm, choosing to present herself without the aid of potentially harmful cosmetics. Her decision was not merely a rebellion against tradition, but a calculated move to appear as natural and approachable as possible. In a society where beauty standards often obscured the natural features of women, Cleopatra stood out by embracing her bare face. This unconventional choice served to highlight her features, making them more striking without the interference of heavy makeup. By foregoing the customary makeup, Cleopatra presented an image of herself that was both captivating and relatable, further cementing her allure among her subjects and potential allies. While Cleopatra's decision to eschew traditional makeup may seem simple, it was a bold statement in a world where beauty norms often dictated societal standing and personal worth. Her choice to embrace her natural beauty became another facet of her legendary charm, adding to the complexity of a woman who defied convention and captivated the hearts and minds of those around her. The reasons behind Cleopatra's choice to bathe in donkey milk were multifaceted. While the milk's soothing properties and association with sacred animals held cultural significance, it was Cleopatra's strategic brilliance that truly elevated this practice to a symbol of her enigmatic allure. By embracing the unconventional, she ensured that her beauty routine became a talking point, further enhancing her mystique and cementing her place in history. As we delve deeper into the life of Cleopatra, we uncover a woman who defied societal norms and embraced what made her unique. From her decision to forego heavy makeup to her affinity for donkey milk baths, Cleopatra's choices were not merely eccentric, but calculated moves to enhance her allure and secure her legacy. Her story serves as a reminder that true confidence lies in embracing what makes us different and using it to our advantage. So the next time you find yourself questioning the wisdom of Cleopatra's unusual beauty secrets, remember that behind every unconventional choice lay a strategic mind and a woman who dared to be different. After all, it was her willingness to break the mold that made her one of history's most fascinating rulers. And if you're as intrigued by Cleopatra's story as we are, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode of our series exploring her extraordinary life. Let us know in the comments below which aspects of Cleopatra's story fascinate you the most and whose stories you'd like us to cover next. Your comments inspire the topics we explore, so be sure to engage with us. Cleopatra VII, Queen of the Nile, has inspired countless stories over the centuries. You've probably heard of her legendary beauty secrets, maybe even tried some of them yourself. But what about the more bizarre tales, like the time she bathed in donkey milk? Today we're separating fact from fiction to reveal the truth behind Cleopatra's unusual habits. So, get ready because this is gonna be one wild ride through ancient Egypt. Now, before we dive into the murky waters of Cleopatra's donkey milk bath, let's set the stage. Imagine the year is 39 to 30 BC, the place, Alexandria, Egypt, a bustling hub of trade and culture where East meets West. And at the center of it all is Cleopatra, the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt, a descendant of Alexander the Great and one of history's most famous faces. Now, Cleopatra wasn't just any queen. She was a force to be reckoned with, a shrewd politician, a powerful ruler, and yes, a trendsetter. Her choices were not just influential, they were iconic. Enter donkey milk. Not exactly what you'd picture as a beauty elixir, right? But to the ancient Egyptians and other Mediterranean cultures like the Greeks and Romans, it was a staple in their skincare routine. Let's rewind a bit. Ancient civilizations often found inspiration from mythology when it came to beauty. For example, the goddess Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of beauty, was said to have bathed in donkey milk, making it a must-try for those who wanted to channel their inner goddess. Then there's the Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder, who wrote about Cleopatra's alleged donkey milk baths in his book, Naturalis Historia, or Natural History. He described it as a favorite beauty treatment of the Egyptian queens. It became popular among the elite. Imagine being the talk of the town because of your radiant skin. No wonder Cleopatra allegedly swore by it. But here's the twist. While these accounts paint a picture of Cleopatra as a trend-setting fashion icon, the truth might be a little different. As with many historical figures, fact and fiction got a bit tangled. Historians are divided. Some believe that Pliny the Elder was not the most reliable source. In fact, he's been known to exaggerate or even fabricate details. Just think of it as the ancient equivalent of a tabloid magazine. You know, those stories that sound too outlandish to be true. Well, that's how some historians feel about Cleopatra's donkey milk baths. They argue that it's just another example of how history's most famous women have been both praised and scrutinized for their choices. Imagine living in an era where every move you make is watched, every choice is judged, and every habit is discussed. It was a double-edged sword. Being admired for one's appearance could mean the difference between success and failure, especially for a woman in power. Cleopatra understood this. She knew that her public image was everything. So how did she maintain her legendary beauty? We'll tell you more after this. Ancient Egypt had some pretty unique beauty secrets, like using crocodile dung as eyeliner to protect against the sun and as a deodorizer. Yeah, you heard that right. Crocodile dung. But back to our donkey milk mystery. There are no written records directly linking Cleopatra to donkey milk baths, so we can't say for sure if she was a fan, but here's what we do know. Donkey milk was indeed a thing in those days. It was praised for its gentle cleansing properties, something that would appeal to anyone who's ever struggled with sensitive skin. Imagine soothing your complexion with a creamy, non-irritating milk that's perfect even for the most delicate of complexions. Plus, it was believed to be a natural exfoliant, leaving skin silky, smooth, and glowing. It sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it? But for those living in ancient times, it was a real-life beauty hack passed down through generations. What's more, donkey milk was thought to have anti-aging properties. Think about it. Who wouldn't want to turn back the clock and reveal younger-looking skin? This belief was so widespread that even Greek and Roman philosophers like Socrates and Plato mentioned it in their works. So, it's not a stretch to imagine that Cleopatra, a woman who took great pride in her appearance, might have hopped on this donkey milk bandwagon. After all, why wouldn't she want to look her best? As the Queen of the Nile, she had to make a grand entrance wherever she went. And what better way to turn heads than with flawless, glowing skin that seemed to defy the sands of time? The idea of Cleopatra bathing in donkey milk adds a touch of whimsy to her already fascinating tale. Picture this, the Egyptian queen surrounded by gallons of donkey milk in a luxurious bath, taking the ultimate self-care to a whole new level. It's almost comical, isn't it? But when you think about it, the image fits perfectly with Cleopatra's larger-than-life persona. Now, let's take a moment to appreciate the absurdity of the situation. Cleopatra bathing in donkey milk, it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? If you were to read about it in a historical fiction novel, you'd probably laugh and think, yeah, right. But that's exactly why it's so intriguing. The sheer ridiculousness of the story makes it impossible to ignore. It's like stumbling upon a meme from ancient times. You can't help but share it with your friends and family. The tale of Cleopatra's donkey milk baths is a reminder of how the past can sometimes be stranger than fiction. It's a cautionary tale for those who put their trust in ancient sources without verifying their accuracy. But it's also a testament to the enduring legacy of Cleopatra herself. Even if the donkey milk baths were just a myth, they've become an integral part of her story. Cleopatra's legacy has been romanticized and fictionalized over the years. Think of movies like Cleopatra starring Elizabeth Taylor, which portrayed her as a glamorous, larger-than-life figure. These portrayals have cemented her image as a mythical, almost otherworldly queen. But the truth might be a lot more grounded. Scholars are working to separate fact from fiction, trying to get to the real Cleopatra. They're uncovering a more realistic, relatable person rather than the distant, untouchable deity she's often been made out to be. It's a continuous process, a never-ending quest for understanding. But it's worth it. By peeling back the layers of myth and legend, we discover a richer, more nuanced version of Cleopatra. The donkey milk baths may not be part of the real Cleopatra's story, but they have become a cultural touchstone. They've sparked conversations, inspired artistic creations, and kept the legend of Cleopatra alive for centuries. So the next time you hear someone waxing poetic about Cleopatra's beauty secrets, you'll be armed with knowledge. You can nod knowingly while thinking, Cleopatra, the queen who bathed in donkey milk. Yeah, that's definitely a story that stood the test of time. Let's not forget the bigger picture here. Cleopatra's story, whether embellished or not, reflects the values and beliefs of her time. It's a window into the past, a glimpse into a world that's long gone. Understanding Cleopatra and her world helps us understand ourselves better. It reminds us how much we've evolved and how much we still have to learn. As for Cleopatra herself, she remains an enigma, a puzzle whose pieces keep getting shuffled. The donkey milk baths may not be part of the authentic narrative, but they serve as a reminder of her enduring allure. She continues to fascinate us, to inspire awe and curiosity, and that in itself is a testament to the remarkable woman she was, whether bathed in donkey milk or not. So remember, history is full of surprises. Be curious, question everything, and never stop learning. And who knows? You might just uncover a fascinating fact that makes you question everything you thought you knew about the past. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to show your support. I am absolutely delighted to share with you this wonderful experience. Thank you for being here. And if you're new here, welcome. This platform is all about ancient history and mythology. Today, we're going to talk about what we learned from the greatest skincare queen of the ancient world, Cleopatra. We have all heard her name. We know she was beautiful, we know she loved luxury, and we know she bathed in milk. Well, today we will go over 3 things we learned from Cleopatra. Cleopatra VII, Queen of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt. Her lineage was Macedonian Greek, and her mother was actually the sister of Cleopatra VI, so they kind of shared a name. Her father, Ptolemy XII, married her mother after he deposed her father, her uncle, and then he killed her mother soon after. That's just family for you. And so now Cleopatra VII and her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, who she later married, ruled Egypt together, and they reigned for around 12 years. Now, Cleopatra is said to have been very intelligent. She knew several languages, including Egyptian, which was almost unheard of at the time. Most of the royal family didn't really bother with Egyptian. She loved her people. She dressed as an Egyptian goddess. She made an effort to learn their customs. And despite her Greek ancestry, she became one of the most Egyptian pharaohs in history. The first thing we learn from Cleopatra is that she was the ultimate skincare queen. There is no evidence that Cleopatra invented the use of milk as a cosmetic. That honor goes to the ancient Persians. The earliest written record of milk as a cosmetic comes from an ancient Persian text called the Keshf al-Oghal, or the Book of Women's Secrets. Dating back to around 900 CE, it says, "From the white of milk, take 1/4 pound, mix it with 1/2 pound of rose water and a like quantity of flour of rice, and make a paste. Let this remain upon thy face as long as it pleases thee, then wash it off." The book also recommends mixing milk with other ingredients such as saffron and honey for use as a face mask. However, Cleopatra did elevate milk to mythical status. And according to legend, she would bathe in donkey milk, which was considered to be the finest quality of milk, because donkeys were believed to produce the whitest, most nourishing milk. According to the Roman historian Pliny the Elder, Cleopatra was bathing in donkey milk every day. And apparently, Mark Antony once gifted her 700 pairs of donkeys, so she never ran out of her favorite skincare product. Cleopatra was also known to have used other animal products in her beauty routine. She would cover herself in honey and then pluck off the honey mixed with hair to remove dirt and dead skin. She also developed a love for perfume and enjoyed making her own by mixing various oils and spices. She would use scents to enhance her image and to mask any unwanted odors. But Cleopatra wasn't just obsessed with looking good. She was also very strategic when it came to her appearance. She understood the power of beauty and she used it to her advantage. For example, when she met with Roman leaders such as Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, she would dress up as an Egyptian goddess and cover herself in gold and jewels to impress them. She knew how to make an entrance and she used every opportunity to enhance her public image. In fact, Cleopatra's obsession with beauty and luxury became a symbol of the Ptolemaic kingdom. When Horace, a Roman poet, visited Alexandria, he was so overwhelmed by the sight of Cleopatra that he wrote a poem comparing her to the goddess Venus. He was blown away by her entrance as she arrived in a golden chariot drawn by elephants and surrounded by incense and perfumes. Cleopatra was determined to live up to the image of the goddess, and she worked hard to maintain her beauty and luxury lifestyle. Even though Cleopatra is often remembered as a tragic figure, someone whose story inspired Shakespeare's play Antony and Cleopatra, there is a lot to admire about her. She was a smart ruler who managed to keep her kingdom independent in a time when it was tough for women to be in charge. She was also a woman ahead of her time who embraced diversity and was unafraid to break the rules. Instead of seeing her story as a tragedy, maybe it's time to celebrate Cleopatra as a badass queen who knew how to take care of herself and always looked fabulous doing it. The second thing we learned from Cleopatra is that donkeys were ancient VIPs. Yes, Cleopatra loved those donkeys. As mentioned earlier, Mark Antony supposedly gifted her 700 pairs of donkeys so she could continue bathing in their milk. But donkeys weren't just a means to an end for Cleopatra. They were also symbols of wealth and power. In fact, donkeys were considered to be one of the most valuable possessions of the Egyptian queens. Their milk was so prized that it was often stolen and smugglers who could get away with it became wealthy. Cleopatra's obsession with donkey milk reflects a larger trend in ancient Egyptian culture towards luxury and excess. For example, the Egyptians kept pet baboons and bred them for their milk, which was used as a cosmetic similar to donkey milk. They also kept herds of cattle and sheep for their milk, which was consumed as a beverage. In fact, ancient Egyptians were some of the first people to domesticate animals for their milk, and they took great pride in the quality and quantity of their herds. But the Egyptians weren't the only ones who adored donkeys. In ancient Greece, donkeys were seen as sacred animals associated with the goddess Aphrodite. They were even used in fertility rituals, and their milk was used to treat various ailments. In fact, Greek mythology has a donkey in it. You might know the story of the ass's ears. Dionysus, the god of wine, was once beaten and left for dead, But an ass carried him on its back to safety, and the other gods were so grateful for this that they turned the ass into a constellation. Donkeys were also revered in ancient Rome. They were seen as symbols of hard work and endurance, and Roman women were said to bathe in donkey milk to improve their skin. Donkey milk is still used in some skincare products today, although it's usually mixed with other ingredients. Some people believe that donkey milk is rich in vitamins and minerals and that it can help to moisturize and nourish the skin. Others say it has anti-aging properties and can reduce the appearance of wrinkles and fine lines. But whether or not there are actual benefits to donkey milk, it's clear that Cleopatra wasn't the only one who thought it smelled divine. And the third thing we learned from Cleopatra is that being extra might just be eternal. From bathing in donkey milk to dressing as an Egyptian goddess, Cleopatra knew how to make a grand entrance. But she wasn't just a lover of luxury. She was a strategic thinker who knew how to use her resources to her advantage. Cleopatra was the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt, and she was determined to keep her kingdom independent. She played the Roman leaders against each other, pretending to be a lover of Caesar, while at the same time playing the role of a devoted wife to her brother and husband, Ptolemy XIII. She also built alliances with powerful figures in the eastern Mediterranean, such as the King of Arabia, and she fought back against her enemies using both military force and propaganda. When Cleopatra met Roman leader Octavian, who would later become the Emperor Augustus, she played her cards right and emerged victorious. She was able to negotiate a peace treaty that kept her kingdom safe, and she even gained more territory. It wasn't just her political skills that made Cleopatra such a formidable ruler. She was also a savvy businesswoman. She knew how to make money, and she used her wealth to fund her lavish lifestyle and to gain more power. Cleopatra was also a patron of the arts and sciences, and she used her influence to promote trade and cultural exchange between Egypt and the rest of the world. In fact, Cleopatra's love of luxury and excess became a symbol of the Ptolemaic kingdom. When the Roman poet Horace visited Alexandria, he was so overwhelmed by the sight of Cleopatra that he wrote a poem comparing her to the goddess Venus. He described her as having a gaze that could melt the hardest heart and a beauty that could rival that of the gods. Cleopatra's obsession with beauty and luxury was legendary. She covered herself in gold and jewels, and she hosted lavish parties and festivals. She also built new temples and monuments, and she restored old ones to their former glory. Cleopatra was determined to make her kingdom the center of the ancient world, and she worked hard to achieve that goal. In many ways, Cleopatra was a woman ahead of her time. She was a strong, intelligent, and ambitious leader who refused to be limited by the expectations of her society. She was a woman who liked to break the rules and do things her own way. She was a lover of beauty and luxury, but she was also a shrewd businesswoman and a savvy politician. If you want to learn more about ancient Egypt or mythology, don't forget to subscribe so you'll be notified when I upload new videos. Also, please click the like button if you enjoyed watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.